I host a show where I talk sports, and to be honest with you, I'm kind of getting tired of sports. Are American sports leagues in trouble? I'll discuss it on this episode of the Scho-Zone. And nail the intro. All right, everybody, welcome to the Scho-Zone. I am your host, Ryan Schofield, coming at you live right now from the DeGen. I'm doing this. Well, I mean, you'll probably listen to this afterwards since there's nobody watching right now. Just kind of impromptu do this, but everybody like, subscribe, comment, share, all of that douchebag stuff that podcast hosts like myself say. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. So let's get right into it. Now, I've started the show a little more than a year ago. I've always kind of had a little bit of a sports vibe to me. In fact, I just was on a show recently and someone said I kind of have a sports center like show, I guess they said. Don't necessarily think that's what I intended out to be. I just usually like to talk about what I like to talk about. And it just so happens that sports are kind of at the center of my universe, or used to be at the center of my universe. We got a couple of moving things here right now in my life. Is that, for starters, I'm turning 40 years old this year. So I have to wonder, is my lack of interest in sports because I'm just getting older? I also just recently got engaged. Is my lack of interest in sports now because I'm kind of moving on to a different part of my life now? Or is it just that things are just not as good as they once used to be? And I'm just going to kind of go through a little bit of my journey as a sports fan, I guess, or just some things I just kind of noticed from the most recent big events we had going on in sports. For starters, the Super Bowl. We just had a Super Bowl with one of our, dynasty franchises, the Kansas City Chiefs, going for a three-peat with arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks, if not the greatest quarterback of all time, Patrick Mahomes, against the Philadelphia Eagles, who honestly, it's one of those things that you can just tell Nick Sirianni just must not be that liked of a guy, because what he has accomplished in his early part of his career, begrudgingly, I hate to admit, but the guy is like mentioned in the same breath as like some of the greatest coaches of all time. But because he's got that punchable face, nobody gives him any credit for it. Jalen Hurts, who I'm somebody who has been very, very critical of, just makes me look like an idiot for the most part, as he's, really just one bad play away in the first Super Bowl he had from being a two-time Super Bowl winner, and maybe got injured last year. Who knows? But he's doing some incredible things. That game should have had a little bit more of a lasting impact on it. That Super Bowl, again, was a blowout, but it's not even so much about that the game wasn't that entertaining. It's even just in the follow-up of how the game was handled. People may have talked about it for like a day or so about it, but honestly, I feel like that there was more coverage of the halftime show or more conversations about the halftime show than there was the actual Super Bowl. Again, the game was a blowout, but almost, to the point of that there's just such a blowout of epic proportions. I feel like we should almost be glorifying that. We didn't even have any talks about, was this Eagles team one of the greatest teams of all time? I don't think, or maybe I just, have been privy to that one. Most everything I kind of at that point on was about the Kendrick Lamar performance, which, people either got or didn't get, or cared or didn't care. Me, I just, it wasn't meant for me, is basically the way that I looked at it. That was my take I had on when I posted about the Super Bowl last year. But then we fast forward to the NBA All-Star game this weekend, which has continuously been a train wreck. I do know that a friend of mine who likes the NBA actually said he found it to be kind of enjoyable. I never had the interest in it. Honestly, the NBA All-Star game to me used to be, as a gambler, it just used to be an automatic victory. It used to be I would bet the over, and that was that. That was the only thing I had from it. It would be nice to see the occasional theatrics, and the fourth quarter was generally a competitive game. I had no idea what the format was, no idea about anything. Again, the dunk contest once upon a time. I'm not even talking about the Michael Jordan, Dominique Wilkins era. I came from the Vince Carter, Steve Francis era of dunking, or, when a guy like Blake Griffin would actually jump over a Kia, that was not even that long ago. And now we have a guy from the G League who, Max McClung's good. I should, most people would assume as a white guy, I'd be a huge Max McClung fan. Doesn't really do anything for me. Don't really care about the dunk contest. The three-point shooting contest hasn't done it for me. Again, the fact that the NBA was kind of hoping that Caitlin Clark would compete kind of shows what a gimmick that has become. There was some skills competition thing I have never really cared about. I just, shocker. Most basketball players are pretty fucking skilled. It's It's not quite as entertaining as like back when we used to do the quarterback challenges in the NFL. But anyways, most of the conversation has been how can we fix the NBA All-Star game, this weekend kind of thing. I just look at it from my own personal standpoint. Not that long ago, I made a tweet about this and people kind of commented this one. As much as I love baseball and football, I probably, because of the, where I live in upstate New York, how the winter is so miserable, I probably used to immerse myself deeper in basketball at one point in time, probably the last decade. That's been gone, and that's both on the college and pro level, I must say. I mean, I used to enjoy the college atmosphere of things, and then the pros, I just enjoyed the playoffs, I guess I would say. But I used to be somebody that used to actually legitimately look forward to the NBA schedule and what games were going to be on TV as far as, what TNT games was I going to get, what ESPN games was I going to get. I kind of feel like that as we've fallen as a too much of anything can be a bad thing. And now with the ability, I see people complain all the time about allegedly having the ability to watch any NBA game they want to, but having access to every game kind of dilutes the product a little bit. No, I mean, the fact that you take it for granted a little bit. It used to be nice to have appointment television on there, but the fact of the matter is that the NBA has kind of turned into what the NHL is for me, which is, okay, I'll start maybe focusing come playoff time. But even then, I mean, last year, I didn't have a real great time watching the NBA playoffs the way I did, and that has dwindled away in the past couple of years. I really want to say that starts with, the COVID bubble, I guess I would say. I don't know. I just know that I used to legitimately give a shit and now kind of don't. Or, is it because I'm prioritizing other time? Is this just something that everybody my age goes through? I don't want to say that's the case because I used to spend a lot of time in bars with guys that are my age now or guys that are much older than me that still seem to really keep up on their sports. And I just even go back to, like I said, during the holidays I had with my family, the idea that at a Schofield family that there was not going to be like an intense knock 'em out, drag 'em out sports argument. No. The conversation was kind of going, just don't really care the way I used to anymore, which is kind of sad. This is where we've arrived to. Now, we have everybody kind of pointing out that, oh, well, look at hockey right now. Hockey's where it's at. I mean, it is kind of weird that hockey is where we settled our Cold Wars in this country, I guess, because, we're thinking back to the 1980 US and Russia now with the tensions between US and Canada. And I'm not going to get into that whole conversation. You can think what you think, but I made the mistake of doing politics on the show one time, not doing that anymore. At least unless I'm I have a guest or I'm with the right audience or something, or maybe I'm well-versed in anything, but whatever. We have the tense relationship between US and Canada right now where we have the Canadian team booing our national anthem, and then we have now players fighting. Yeah, I mean, I guess it is exciting when, because hockey is one of those games that, the effort of intensity, you can get to levels and the speed of the game can certainly make for a better product on that one. But ultimately, is everybody talking about watching the game or are they talking about the violent content of it, which is good, is that we do need to have a sport that has some violence in it, I guess, every now and again. I mean, once upon a time, basketball was a little bit, just even look at how hard the fouls used to be in basketball versus now and the different the idea of, just grazing somebody in the face being a flagrant one, as I always point out is that this happened in my lifetime, but one of the most epic clips ever of in NBA history is when Kevin McHale clotheslines Kurt Rambis. I don't even think that was called a technical foul. I think that was just considered to be a regular shooting foul once upon a time. That happens in today's NBA. Kevin McHale is suspended for what? A couple games probably? Who knows? But with hockey, the only thing being the draw of it being the fight that we had, it kind of makes that a little bit of a novelty act in itself. I mean, the idea that, one thing that I'm kind of learning throughout all this, again, hockey is one of those sports because I don't see the influx of talents coming in the way that we used to, I guess, in the NBA. We used to see the next generation of stars come through college, just the way we did with NFL or in college football. We never really got that with hockey, but it is becoming that, I guess, hockey is becoming more of an American sport than a Canadian sport, or we're going up in numbers in that one. So yay for us, I guess. Meanwhile, I'd say that Canada is taking our dominance in basketball. Again, there's a lot of guys that go to college or, there's as many good Canadian basketball players now in the league, or there's enough Canadian stars, I guess, as there is American-born stars in this most recent generation of basketball players. So kind of strange there. I guess we're taking from each other's cultures a little bit, I guess. But then you get to my beloved sport, baseball, which, it is nice that it does have that standalone. Once we get into the summer, it's the only act in town, I would say. But what's going on with that one? I mean, well, for starters, last year we just had this whole idea, but whether or not Ohtani bet or not. And you guys, if you follow this show, you know my thoughts on that one. Learn how to read a fucking legal report if you think Shohei Ohtani bet. I get it. It doesn't make for as exciting because all of you fucking comedians out there with your wonderful Ohtani gambling jokes are, oh, please show me the meme of Ohtani next to Mookie Betts again. That one's fucking really clever and original, by the way. So yeah, my thoughts on that one. But at least I think baseball is trending towards a good spot in the sense that we have a true villain team. Like, I just think of what baseball during obviously steroids helped, but there was that whole period of time where because the Yankees were the evil empire and everybody that wasn't a Yankees fan hated the Yankees, we are getting that with the Dodgers right now, where I think we're going to start getting a lot more attachment to when everybody's rooting against one team. It's never a bad thing. That we can see that with football because, again, allegedly the ratings were higher than ever for the Chiefs-Eagles game because we had that Chiefs fatigue. It used to happen all the time with the Patriots. As much as people hated the Patriots, I always made the comparison to Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. As much as you hate to admit it, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. That's the way the Patriots were. That kind of is the way that the Mahomes, Kelsey, Taylor Swift thing kind of worked out. We needed something to hate to draw the eyeballs on there. Again, I have a hard time believing that. And if there was as many eyes watching that Super Bowl as was claimed, especially in the third and the fourth quarter on that one, then that's just going to show how bad the collective gambling problem has got in this country, because that was the only reason to be watching that game. In my case, I was watching it with a woman who has never watched the Super Bowl before and getting her entertainment out of wondering why this is such a big deal. But we're going to move on from that conversation. But what's going on with baseball right now is that we have the idea that the Dodgers are the super team that can't be stopped, even though they've only won one World Series. I'm not going to count what happened in 2020, but, it does make for, some compelling storylines on there. I sure know that I have more excitement watching teams that are going to play the Dodgers than watching my own beloved St. Louis Cardinals, because ultimately, I'm hoping the Dodgers start making some, motivate the rest of baseball to realize that you do have the money, you can spend it. But what are the positive conversations we have surrounding sports at this point right now? It just seems like that anytime somebody has accomplished anything, we need to talk about why they didn't deserve it. Like, again, I go back to the MVP conversation between Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. It's like, you would think that Josh Allen doesn't even belong being a starting quarterback based on some of the criticisms of him winning the MVP, which I get it. It's never, the optics are always the whole thing, but not everything has to be a race issue. And again, voter fatigue is definitely a thing. If you want to look back, yes, probably in basketball, LeBron James and Michael Jordan probably should have never not won an MVP before, but that shit happens, I guess. It is nice to get somebody else win, I guess, every now and again. But I'm which reminds me of one of my least favorite episodes, the David Montgomery episode, where I ranted like a lunatic about fantasy football owners being losers and never recorded a single drop of audio on that one. But yeah, so I just, going forward, I don't know where we're going right now. Like this time of year, I used to not only be a huge college basketball, and it had something to do with betting, but it also had something to do with, it was fun to converse about. Now, again, as I get older, and maybe as I move into different parts of my life and I don't hang out at the bar as much anymore, I don't have as much reason to talk sports. But honestly, I don't really care the way I used to. And it's been a slowly dwindling feeling on there, as I've been constantly mentioning. And I'm actually was just in touch with a pretty decent sports handicapper who was just going on a little bit of a rant on Twitter about, how sports gambling has ruined sports. And I've been kind of on that school of thought for a little while. So I'm thinking about talking with him because, again, as I've been saying for a while now, it used to be if I wanted to have a good conversation about sports, I needed to talk to someone who was betting. And now if I want to have a good conversation about sports, it needs to be with somebody who isn't betting. Because ultimately, anybody that bets, if you start talking sports, it starts turning into a gambling conversation, which I get it. I've been doing that for a while, but sometimes can we just talk about something without having to put money down on it? I don't know where that all came from, or it just really went over the top. I do get it. It's because of the commercials and the fact that it's been force fed down our throats, and the fact that it's just as simple as just opening up an app on your phone. God forbid, there used to be a little bit of a moment in time when you were a degenerate gambler where you had to almost behave like a drug addict, in the sense of that if you were at a party, you had to find an excuse to be on the phone. And just think back before the cell phone, you used to have to actually get on like the cordless phone and duck in the bathroom to call a bookie up, or basically like, calling your weed guy up, like, hey, when can I meet you? Well, do this, organizing a bet was like organizing a transaction. Now anybody can just pull up their apps on their phone at any point in time and fire in a bet, which, maybe it doesn't sound like the best idea. And I'm not going to say this as somebody that I still don't bet, but I don't bet with the way that I used to. It's like this point in time right now, I like at one point in time, I fell victim to the betting apps. I was somebody who needed to have, if they gave me a boost, it was wasted if I didn't use it. And now it's kind of okay, if there's something I want to bet and there happens to be a boost that coincides with it, so be it. But, we'll see where all of that goes as far as, I'm enjoying this nice relaxing period of just kind of casually taking in the scores, hearing the storylines, not being obsessing over 19-year-old kids shooting free throws at the end of a 12-point basketball game to wonder if I can cover 10.5 or not. Glad those days are over with for a little bit. March Madness is coming up and I don't even care. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where I'm just seeing right now that UConn apparently might miss the tournaments. When the last I saw, their coach was, antagonizing fans and whatnot. Like, what the hell is this shit going on? Again, I feel like that. And as I feel bad at talking to my last guest, Jake Wardrip, who runs an NIL collective. He's doing it at a small scale D3 level, which is nice to put some money in their pockets there, for the little, for guys in the local communities at those things. That's great. But, the idea of following sports, I used to care a little bit more about college basketball because you could kind of, if you watched one season, you could bank away some information about teams and utilize it the next season. Now I don't have the time to follow the transfers. Don't, know how well they're going to play together, all that stuff. I'm sure that I'll watch the first round of the March Madness. I'll probably find some, betting angles that I like, and I'll fire a couple dollars down, but nothing like I used to. That's for sure. That's just going to be more to scratch an itch, not to actually try to make any money, I would say. Again, big difference between your $5 and $10 better versus your $50 and $100 betters, I guess I would say. I'm not really looking to lay it out any action until baseball season comes along, and then we'll see how that one goes. But just kind of want to put something out there. I've got a lot going on in this life of mine right now. I know I've been saying I'm not going to be doing this show as much anymore, but every now and again, I feel like ranting and raving, and I'm going to try and keep it tight and short because, again, I've realized that maybe I'm tough to follow along for an hour or so, but maybe get the occasional guest on here. We may have some significant changes in schedules, and I've got a couple of little collaborations I've been kind of talking with. Might be, lots of different podcast groups, throughout all the different forms of social media on there, and I maybe made a connection with somebody who seems like we have some common interests, and we actually have some references of each other as far as I know where he lives. He knows where I lived at one point in time, so we can probably, get some good conversations going. He is a Yankees fan. I am a Cardinals fan, and doesn't seem like he's, afraid for us to mix it up a little bit as long as we can keep it professional. So we'll see what happens there. I'm looking to try and, schedule some of those recovery room episodes again for everybody, but just wanted to put something out there real quick. Soon going forward, if you have any episodes of mine in the past that you really liked, you're going to want to download those, I believe, to whatever podcast format you're at. Switch things up. I'm going to be, I guess, posting on podcast, Spotify for podcast creator or Anchor, whatever the hell it is. I just know it saved me a couple bucks, and that way it doesn't make me feel as bad about not putting out as much effort as I should. But for right now, I'm just going to wrap this one up. And that was a quick hitter from the Scho-Zone. So everybody take it easy, like, subscribe, comment, share, all that douchebag stuff that podcast hosts like myself say.